Illinois Stories is brought to you by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by the support of viewers like you. Thank you.
Hello, welcome to Illinois Stories. I'm Mark McDonald in Springfield at Camp Lincoln, where several years ago the state's historic flag collection was moved from the Howlett Building at the Capitol Complex here to Camp Lincoln, where they built a building inside this building to store those flags. Well, now there are more than 1,000 historic flags here, and they're not only stored here, but they're actively conserved here. Before we go into the flag storage facility, though, Alex Dixon, you're the conservator of these hundreds of flags here. It's interesting how they built this facility, because what they needed was a facility that was climate controlled, humidity controlled, all those kinds of things, because these flags are very, very fragile. And the building that you had available to you was this enormous tank storage shed, right?
Correct.
I guess that's what this was used for.
Yeah. After World War II, the 106 Tank Battalion was transferred here to Springfield, Illinois. Inside this building, we housed Sherman battle tanks, and after those were transferred out, the building was used as a whole multitude of different things. Eventually, though, they decided to use this as our flag storage facility. And so we built the building that you see inside. It was back in 2000 that the facility was started. They had money, multiple years to build it. And by 2003, the flags had been brought over into this building. And so you have a building within a building. The inner one is climate controlled, temperature controlled.
Yeah, well, you can see all of the insulation just packed on top of it.
Correct.
And the white walls, those walls are insulated as well. So I mean, you probably have conditions in there that are as good as probably any museum in the country for storing flags and delicate fibers, right?
Correct. Yeah, we try and keep a steady temperature, steady humidity, and this building allows us to do so.
Wow. Okay. Well, let's you and I take a walk in there and see what you do, okay?
Sounds good.
Well, Alex, you know, a lot of people will remember about, maybe 12 years ago when all of the flags were moved from the Hall of Flags at the Howlett Building, and that immense project of moving all those historic flags. They all came here into this facility, didn't they?
They did, yeah. Currently, we have over roughly 1,000 battle flags. We have just around 500 Civil War. We're still getting flags brought in daily. As units come back from Iraq and Afghanistan, they bring them over to us, and we put them into our collection to protect them for as many years as possible.
Yeah. And you've really got your work cut out for you, because you're the flag conservator here, and you've got about 1,000 flags to work on before you die.
Yes, yes. My work will be taken care of for many years to come.
For a long time. You got a good, secure job. We're going to go into these flags a little later, but this gives you an idea of the kind of flag this comes into your possession, and this is one of the ones you're going to be working on pretty soon.
Correct.
You lay them out flat like this, and then you assess them. And then after you assess them, then you decide, okay, now what can we do? What's in the best interest of this flag, right?
Correct.
Because you don't want to destroy it any further. What you want to do is make it displayable.
Correct. Our goal, we want to get these back into the homes of the communities around the state. You know, to have a flag in a courthouse and have a child go in and see a piece of Civil War history that town's a part of is something that we have the ability to do, and we want to do so.
Yeah. More on this flag later. If we turn around to the left of the camera here, we can see there's another bench over here, and this is where the work actually goes on. And we'll delve into the condition of these flags and what they are as we go on here. But this one here, it looks like it's seen a lot of battles.
Correct. This is of the 100th Illinois. They're out of Joliet, and as you see, they took the time to paint on their battle honors. So it gives us today a really easy way to see where they were, what battles they were a part of, and at the time it gave these soldiers reason to be proud of their unit.
Wow, wow, look at that. And you'll show us, so you've got the tools of the trade here, you'll be able to show us what sort of work you do on all these old relics of war, my goodness. Let's look down this way, because what you can see is all these cabinets all the way down to the end of the building. And you can see that they stack one on top of the other. That flag that we see displayed there will slide in.
Yep.
And there's maybe 20 flags in that one cabinet.
Correct.
And then they pull out, and that way you can assess them, and actually you can even show them. In fact, let's do this over here, if you would, Alex. Let's show what we've got here real quick, and we'll come back and tell the story of this flag. But pull it out and show us how you store these flags.
So the best possible way to store an old Civil War flag is flat in the dark. We want to avoid any further light damage, and so the cabinets allow us to store the item flat, stores them in the dark and climate controlled. And it's easy access. We can pull them out whenever we need to. This particular flag is another flag that you can see a lot of damage on. And so this one, when the conservation work starts, is going to be a little bit more challenging just because of the fragile nature of the fabric itself.
And we'll come back and tell the story of this flag as well as the one below it, because it's a fascinating story. And then over here, you've got the same thing on this side of the building. You've got these cabinets, these roll-out cabinets, and you've got hundreds and hundreds more stored on this side. And the one we're looking at there, we're going to tell the story of in just a few minutes.
Yes.
Alex, here's a good example of the condition that one of your Civil War flags is in. You can see much of it's missing. It's
Correct.
just gone. And that just happened, I mean, part of it happens in war, part of it happens afterwards, part of it happens a century from just trying to exhibit it in a correct way, but they're just old, fibrous things, and they fall apart, don't they?
Yes. Yeah, during the Civil War, you have 3 different materials that are used. You have silk, you have cotton, and you have wool. Silk is by far the most fragile of those. Union flags were made of silk. They're cheaper to make, they're quicker to make, and so they're easier to get out to all these units. The problem becomes after the war when we're trying to protect them. And so as you're going to see on a lot of these flags, you're missing parts. The problem is that with the silk and our desire to display these, the silk literally pulled itself apart. And after a while, you would find little piles of the flag just sitting underneath the flagpole. And so the Confederate flags today, they don't have that big of an issue. Certain flags were made of silk, and you'll find that, but for the majority of the Confederate flags, it's all cotton and wool flags, and they just held up a lot better.
Now, for this one is silk, of course. This is a Union flag, and you can see, I'm not going to touch it, but part of this seems to have this mesh material covering the front and back. And that was intentional, wasn't it? That was done afterwards.
Yes. So in the 1920s, the state of Illinois realized that the flags that they were tasked with protecting were falling apart. And there were groups of women that were traveling the country, and they were going state to state, and they were sewing this black silk meshing onto the flags themselves. It does 2 things. One, it prevents any further deterioration in terms of flag falling off of itself. It also stabilizes the rest of the flag in a way that's going to prevent them from deteriorating more, and it's going to protect them for the longevity of what they were hoping to have with these. And so it's a double-sided black mesh. If you get real close, you'll be able to tell that there are diamond patterns sewn in there where they sewed through the flag. This was the top-of-the-line conservation method at the time. Since then, they have developed new ways that would prevent any sort of damage from happening. But at the time, the state hired what was the best. And they brought in, it was roughly 10 to 12 women, and for months they did nothing but sew these mesh onto every flag we had.
In retrospect, it was a pretty good thing, wasn't it?
It was.
It was a good, I mean, saved it. While it's not in the same condition, it's not in original condition, it did save a lot of the material, didn't it?
It did. You can go to other states and see their flag collections, and the states that did not do this black meshing, the flags are in a lot worse condition. So we are really lucky to have this on ours.
Okay. Now, you'll notice as you look at this flag, and this is the 13th Regiment Illinois Infantry, you'll notice here that there's a discolored area down here at the bottom, and that's really what makes this flag quite a story, doesn't it?
It does. So the 13th Illinois was at a battle called Ringgold Gap. During that, they were fighting in a tree line, very intense fighting. Confederates, Unions, very close proximity. And in the course of roughly 5 minutes, 3 color bearers for the 13th Illinois were carrying the flag. They were shot and killed, and the next one picked that flag up. The 3rd gentleman to carry this flag, as he was shot, the flag wrapped around him and he fell down a slight slope. And when they recovered the flag after the battle, they unfurled his body, and on the flag they found this giant blood stain. And so this is the dying moments of that color bearer giving his life to protect the colors of his unit. And today we get to tell that story.
Wow. Okay.
It's very moving to look at this the first time.
So the flag is, the first one is shot, picked up again, and the 3rd time the flag is picked up, the man dies inside the flag.
He does.
And the flag has his blood on it.
Yes.
Would you show us the next flag on this?
Absolutely.
Because the next one is also very, very important. And and it also gives us a chance to see how you store them. You have this Mylar plastic coating that you keep on top, right?
Yeah, so the Mylar gives us two things. It protects the flag from any surface dirt falling onto it, and it just gives another barrier. Some of the Mylar's got some form of protection, but it just protects the flag just a little bit more. And so every flag we have has Mylar on both the top and bottom. And when we view the flags, we pull this back. It always works to give us a much better view of it, but it makes the flags just kind of pop out a little bit more.
Yeah. And this is also the 13th Illinois, isn't it?
This is. So this was actually the 13th Illinois' first flag they carried during the war. And in one of the earlier battles, some of their soldiers were captured, including their color, or their color bearer, and the flag was captured with them. And that's really the only story with the flag until after the war. During the fall of Richmond, the commander of the Union forces, as he enters the city, commands the soldiers near him to find the first Union flag at their disposal and to raise it over the city. And this is that flag.
Is that right?
So imagine at Libby Prison, there were multiple Union flags. These soldiers come in, they find a pile of them, they grab the first one, and they go to the tallest point in the city, and they raise the flag.
So this is a real landmark flag.
Yes.
Okay, when Richmond fell, the 13th Illinois flag was flying above it.
Exactly.
Now, walk with me down this way. We've got one ready to display here.
Yes.
This looks a lot different.
It's very different. We just looked at two national flags. Now this is a regimental flag. Most regimental flags during the war were a blue field with a giant eagle in the front and their talons holding a ribbon that would usually say whatever unit was assigned to that flag. Now this one you can tell is much different. It's a green silk. It has beautiful gold paint all over it. This is the Irish unit. This is the 90th Illinois. They were the second Irish unit to come out of Chicago. They were known as the Irish Legion and the 2nd Irish. Now this is technically their third flag. Their first flag was captured in an early engagement. It was taken to Andersonville. Their second flag survives the war. They have a reunion a few years afterwards, and during the infamous Great Chicago Fire, it's burned. And then this one was privately raised. Funds were privately raised to make this flag, and this was their third one. But this is as an accurate of a representation as we know of what this flag is.
And this would have been made in retrospect after the war, and of course they knew by that time which battles they were engaged in, so they could put the entire history of the unit on this flag. And they had the liberty to make the flag the way they wanted it to look.
Exactly.
They didn't all have to be exactly the same. They had liberty to make it, to individualize their flag, didn't they?
Yeah, this is as good of an example as you can get. You hear of the infamous New York unit known as the Irish, the Fighting Irish. They were very famous for that. This is Illinois' version of that. Both of those units were very proud of that Irish heritage.
And this is in very good condition compared to some of them that we've seen.
It is. Now it can be a little deceiving. This looks physically in great condition, but this flag is actually in incredibly fragile state. The reason for that is all the paint you see. The safest way for us to transport these to our museum is rolling them on a giant tube and putting them in an airtight container. All of the paint on here that you see, every time we do so, you can hear the cracking and the deterioration of that flag. And so this flag won't go back out. We won't display it until we're able to do the proper conservation process on it, which will take months, probably 4 to 5 months at least, to get this in a state where it's movable.
Larry Johnson, as we look at the most recent acquisition of Civil War flags at the Illinois Military Museum, it's so interesting the way some of these flags come to you, isn't it? I mean, people from all over the country find out that you have this enormous collection, and in some cases, they just want the flag to come home.
Right. The family that donated this flag, I mean, this flag was captured. It's a captured Confederate flag, captured by a member of the Illinois National Guard. And the flag had been passed down through the family, and they knew ultimately that that flag needed to come home to our collection.
Yeah.
And our collection's become fairly well known nationally. We're the third largest collection, with New York and Pennsylvania having more flags in their collection. So it's our extraordinary collection. They knew that we would take good care of, and this gift was a year in the making.
Yeah.
Our conservator, Bill Lear, who's deployed in Afghanistan for another month or so, was in discussions with the family for a very long time. Then the issue was, how do we bring the flag home? Do we ship it in some FedEx custom critical, and so they ultimately chose to fly the flag in. I met the family member who was in possession of the flag on Memorial Day 2015, and immediately returned the flag to a safe place that day. We then waited until we had a conservator in residence, a nationally recognized flag conservator, in to help us with our conservation process. And she and Alex Dixon, our conservator, spent 4 hours just unboxing this flag.
And it was in this little bitty box.
It was in this old gift box from a department store from the 40s or 50s.
And they would take it out every year and display it, right? And then cram it back in that box.
At one point, but I don't know that they've taken it out for a long time. So we were very cautious, and it took 4 hours to actually remove that flag from this box. So we did it safely. It was something that Alex took very carefully, and we used our nationally our national expert to help us with this particular process.
Yeah.
So we're very proud of adding this to our collection. Again, if this flag could talk and the stories it would tell, it's an amazing story of the soldiers of the Illinois National Guard.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. And it was an Illinois National Guard a flag, and it's interesting because, you know, these were all so different.
It was a Confederate flag.
I'm sorry, Confederate flag, but it was captured by
members
National Guard.
of the Illinois National Guard.
There you go. And you can see that there's 13 stars for the Confederate states, I assume, but it was red, white, and blue too.
It was red, white, and blue, and now obviously there's some traces of the red and the blue, and of course the white.
Very, very faded, but what a treasure to have. And of course, Alex now is going to have to perform some magic on making sure that it doesn't deteriorate any further.
Right, and it's safe here. I mean, the deterioration will be minimized in this temperature, environmentally controlled structure. So we're very proud to add this to the facility, as was the family that donated. Very proud to help us bring this flag home. So it was fun to be a part of something so important.
Well, Alex, it looks like you really got your work cut out for you on this one. This is a Union Civil War flag. Was it an Illinois flag?
This is an Illinois flag. So this particular one is the national colors of the 100th Illinois Volunteer Infantry. They're primarily out of Joliet, Illinois. It's actually a private society from Joliet that has raised the money to bring this back home. And we're going to put it eventually in their Joliet Area Historical Museum, which is a museum dedicated to the complete history of Joliet. And this is going to be the star feature of their military history exhibit.
This has really seen better days. When you start on something like, well, it doesn't matter what condition a flag is. You start at the beginning, right? And the beginning is always sort of a cleaning process, I guess, isn't it?
You've got to remember, these flags are over 150 years old sometimes. The amount of surface dirt that is gathered on these flags is incredible. And so we've got a couple of processes that are very time consuming, but are very essential in cleaning these flags. So you start with the Q-tip, very simple technology. Ours are a little bit fancier than everyday Q-tips you buy at the store. And we're going to put it in some distilled water and with a little chemical called Biva, which is just a light surface cleaner. And all we're going to do is we're going to take the Q-tip and we're going to slowly rub the surface. And I generally try and get a little bit of turning on the Q-tip just to give it a little bit more friction. But it's a slow process. It's going to do two things. It's going to help straighten the fringe itself, and it's going to clean the fringe. And so after we've done that, the next step we're going to go to is going to be using some more technology of a cosmetic sponge. And we're going to dab the flag. So just simple, light amount of pressure for the entire surface of this flag.
Is that dry?
This is dry. We don't use any liquid on this.
Okay.
This is just going to pick up anything that's already loose on the top of the flag. And now some would imagine that this is going to get slightly dirty over the course of the entire flag. But if you look at some of these examples,
I guess so.
This gives you an idea of how dirty these sponges are going to be. And we've used probably about 40 of these type of sponges. And this is how dirty all of them have gotten.
Have you finished that process on this flag? Have you dabbed it, the whole flag?
We have. So this entire flag has had its fringe cleaned. It's been dabbed clean with the sponges. And the process we're on to now is vacuuming. And so we're going to use a Nilfisk vacuum, which is a little bit more technical for museums, but it's just it's a fancy vacuum.
Is that what's to your left there?
And that's this guy here. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our tip here, which is just a little brush, nothing fancy by any means, and we're going to gently just put this across the top of the surface. We're not going to put it directly on top. The suction from the vacuum itself would pull the flag up, and we want to avoid that. This is just another process of pulling up some of that surface dirt.
I assume you have a very gentle speed cycle with this thing, right, for these old flags?
The wonderful thing about this vacuum is you have this attachment, which is a little bit tangled up, which is called a variable adjustment control. And what this allows us to do is, you can see these numbers, we can go from 100% power, which is the power of a normal vacuum, all the way down to 20% and even lower. Just gives us a real nice gentle cleaning ability. And we generally try and keep it about 20 to 25% when we're doing this. So after we finish this process, we're going to get to a little bit more fancy of a little bit more technical process, I should say. And we're going to start the relaxing process. And to do that, we're going to use another instrument, which is called a preservation pencil. And that's this piece of equipment right here. And all this is going to do is going to take water vapor from just an everyday standard dehumidifier, and it's going to heat it up to about 110 degrees, and we're going to put that into the fabric. And what that's going to do is, it's going to do a very, very fast relaxation process. It's going to take the flag, which it's hard to see now, but there are a lot of ripples in the flag just from the dryness that it's had, and it's going to flatten it out. And what we'll do is, we're going to take some of this blotting paper we have, and after we've gone through the process, get a couple pieces here. After we go through the process of the preservation pencil itself, which looks similar to just like this, you're going to try and keep the nozzle off about 4 inches, and you're going to point it down towards the flag. And it's going to make sure that not too much moisture gets into the flag, just enough to start that relaxation. And as you go over the flag, you're going to notice a darkness to it. That's the moisture being in there. But you're also going to, once you've done it for a while, you're going to notice the flag immediately relaxing. And so we'll do plate size areas of these glass plates. And after we're done with an area, we're going to take these blotting paper, which is going to pick up any of that extra moisture that we don't want sitting in the flag. We'll just set it down on top like this, and put a couple of glass plates. And this is going to do 2 things for us. One, it's going to bring that moisture out of the flag. We want it to be relaxing, but we don't want it to be sitting in moisture. And that's going to start that process. And the glass plates are going to give it just a little bit of force to help flatten the flag. We want it to flatten so it gets back to as much of a true shape as it can. And that's what this process does.
Okay. Before we go any further, I'm looking at up the top of the flag, and I see this board across the front. Now, a lot of this, you can't climb on this flag to do this, so you've got what you call a belly board there.
It's our belly board.
Okay.
Now,
and that slides this way, so you can get on top of the whole flag, huh?
Yep. So that's what we use when we have to get to the middle. You can be 7 feet tall and have the greatest arm reach, but you're not going to be able to comfortably work in the middle of this flag. And so we bought this, and we use that as a way to climb up on top. We can take all of our tools with us. We have movable trays on there, and it allows us to work in the middle of that flag.
So you lay on your belly, and you just work with your hands down, huh?
Yeah.
That probably gets uncomfortable after a while.
It does. We have a very strict rule we follow: 10 minutes on, 10 minutes off. The flag conservator that trained us actually had some medical issues arise after she would use this too much. She had back surgery a couple summers ago to help prevent some of that pain. And so, as comical as the name belly board is, it is a very serious piece of equipment for us. And without that, we can't do this project.
Right. Okay, so now you're drawing the moisture back out of the flag that has been flattened.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
So that's going to do a lot of the work that we need to do. The last thing that's going to come up is the paint itself and some of the weaker areas. We need a way to stabilize that. And what we do is we use a material such as this, which is called stable text. It's a very thin material. It's some weave-in fibers, and it's very strong. You can pull this fairly hard and it's not going to come apart. And what we do is we attach a fabric glue to the back of it, and through heat, the stable text attaches to the back of the wood glue, or the fabric glue, And then we can use that same heat to attach little pieces of this to the flag. And it's going to be hard to see.
Because you use very tiny pieces sometimes, don't you?
We use pieces that are millimeters in size. And so there's a few examples here in this box. It gives you an idea. Pinpoint size. And we're going to take these little things and we're going to use a wood iron and we're going to dab them onto weak areas. And this allows us to have a fine point of heat that we can use to put those Band-Aids on.
That's what they are. They're just like a little Band-Aid, aren't they?
Yeah, it's doing the exact same function.
And once you heat that on to say, let's pick a piece of paint here that looks like maybe it's flaking off or that doesn't look like it's going to make it.
The in Nashville here, if you get real close, you'll be able to see that at the top of this point, the paint has cracked. And what we'll use this Band-Aid for is we're going to prevent that paint from chipping off and from further splitting. And so we'll take the Band-Aid, we'll use a pair of tweezers, and we're going to put it in between that silk meshing we talked about before.
Yeah.
And we're going to hold it in place, and we're going to just slowly dab this wood iron onto there. Not enough to burn the paint or the flag, but just enough to heat that up to where it's going to apply itself.
And that little Band-Aid is transparent, so you'll never know that it's there. You won't
Correct.
see it.
Yep. We have, since we use the stable text, we have the ability to dye that stable text any color we need. So we can make yellow if we need. We can have red, blue, black, whatever we decide we have to have. And the best part about it is that, as we mentioned with the meshing, 100 years ago, that was the best technology out there. If 100 years from now they decide that these little Band-Aids are harming the flag, it's 100% reversible.
Okay, one last question, and I don't know how you deal with this, but for the parts of this flag that are just actually missing, that have fallen apart, that all you can see is the mesh, is there anything you can do for that, or is that just part of being 160 or 70 years old or whatever?
There's two ways. For us, that's just as much part of the story of this flag now. The missing parts have that story. If there is a place that decides they would like to recover the look of the original flag, we can use that stable text to make it to put a ghost image almost of the original flag itself. So it's never going to replace it. You can't redo the flag and make it 100% original, but you can get the image of it with the stable text.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
As you might suspect, this work is painstaking, slow, can be tedious, takes a long time. This 100th Infantry flag has been promised to Joliet, and they hope to have it finished for them in March, say March of next year. And this 53rd, I think it's the 53rd Infantry flag, this is the second priority. This one will be the next to work on, but you know, the Irish flag's important. They have 4 people who have expressed interest in getting their flags back to them. So those are on the front boiler. And of course, when they get time over here, they have 500 other Civil War flags that demand their attention. With another Illinois story in Springfield, I'm Mark McDonald. Thanks for watching.
Illinois Stories is brought to you by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by the support of viewers like you. Thank you. For a DVD copy of the program you've just seen, send $19.95 to Network Knowledge, P.O. Box 6248, Springfield, Illinois 62708. Be sure to include the program name, subject, and when the program aired. You can also order with your credit card by calling 800-232-3605.